as mentioned, we're going to talk about the Bootstrap grid system. And if you look at any given site, so if we just go out to, Microsoft.com usually has a pretty up-to-date site. And if you go look what's out there, we've got, this menu in the top where we can shift between views, obviously, right? Different Microsoft products. We've got this big giant kind of ad here. We've got these little individual boxes laid out that are links that we can click on. We've got these pictures with the little information about them and a link. You picture this in terms of layout. How do we lay this out? And in the old days, in the beginnings of the HTML world, what you did to get stuff laid out is you put it into tables. So you would do just like you do with tables that you've used. We create a table, and then we create a table row, and then within that row we create a table column, and then we go put all our stuff in there. So this is where we'd start putting a paragraph, or heading or whatever. We'd lay everything out this way, and then if we wanted an image off to the right, we create a new table row or column, and we put the image in there, and so on and so forth. So you try and lay stuff out, which worked okay. I mean, it wasn't great, but it worked okay to kind of get stuff arranged on the page the way you wanted to. The problem is that everybody used to access any website on a computer. And you might have different size monitors you have to deal with, but basically they were roughly the same. And so the websites would look, pretty good on whatever way the way you laid it out looked pretty good across pretty much any device that was going to access it. Well, eventually we came up with mobile devices, and particularly smartphones. Well, smartphones, have a much smaller screen, obviously. And so what happened was that as developers, we started just checking a flag and saying, is this a smartphone? If it is, don't even use this HTML. Instead, use this other HTML. And we would just completely separate them out, design two completely separate websites. Well, then there's this weird thing that happened one day where the tablets came out. And I remember walking into Best Buy one day and glancing down and seeing my first iPad and saying, what the heck is this? Like, it's not as big as a computer, but it's bigger than a phone. I mean, it looks like a giant iPhone is what it looks like, or an iPod. iPod Touch. It looked like a big iPod Touch, and I thought, who's going to use these? Well, obviously they caught on popularity, and now the problem is, you have smaller phones, you have really big phones, these fairly 7-8 inch screens on phones. You have tablets at 11 inches, or there's some that are smaller. Kindle Fire is a little smaller, right? You have the iPad Pros that are giant, some of them. I can't remember the size exactly. And you have laptops that are 13 inches, and you got all these different size devices. And so we can't just use this table format. When we use it, the problem is as soon as you start to shrink that window, everything just runs off to the right, and you have to scroll over to see it. And so one of the big things that I'm sure you've heard this term before, but that we want to make our websites responsive. And so depending on the size of the screen, everything on the page shifts. It moves. It flows as the screen size changes. So we can use the same site for a giant. One of my computers here, I have a 32-inch monitor. So 32-inch monitor. I'm working right now on two 24-inch monitors. Sorry, 27-inch monitors, and then but my laptop is a 15-inch or something, and we want it to look good in any of those given situations. And so Bootstrap comes up with a way to do that called the grid system. And so the way that the grid system works is that we use these containers. So I come in, I say I want a new container, not a container, a div, and the class is a container. So notice again, when I start typing this, there's this little B indicating this is a Bootstrap, part of the Bootstrap library. So I say I want a container. All right. And then within that container, I'm going to create, it still works with rows and columns, so I'm still going to have a row and a column, but the way that they function is different. And so I can come in here and say I want a div, and this is going to be the class for this one is going to be a row, bootstrapped row, okay? And within that row, I want to create a column. So I say, give me a new div, the class is equal to a call, which is a column, and then I can go from there. But they work differently. So the whole Bootstrap grid system is built. So let's go search here, Bootstrap grid, because I'm sure we're going to see a great graphic here. The grid system in Bootstrap. It's all based on 12 columns. 12, not columns, but 12 sections. And so every website, 12 columns. Use our powerful mobile-first Flexbot grid to build layouts of all shapes and sizes thanks to a 12-column system. And so you picture any given page, and if I say here, I want 3 columns, so if I come in and say, here's one column, I'll just say blah. I'm going to create a second column, so class equals column. Then that's going to be, whoops, just leave it as column, yada. And then one more column, div hello. So I've got 3 columns, and if I keep forgetting the class equals column. It's going to take this information where I have 3 of these things and divide it up between the page. So when I run this, each of these columns it does not like me not having a model. And we aren't going to have any models. Oh, I'm referencing the models. And oh shoot, yeah. So okay. Sorry. Once we kill that model, then it's saying there's nothing in that models folder. So I'm going to comment this out. And then the other problem is going to be in the shared, in the view imports. These importing the models is not going to work, so I'll comment that out as well. So that was in the home controller, I comment out the reference to models, and in the view imports, I comment out the reference to models. All right, now let's try running it. And what we should see is it's going to take those 3 things that I put on the page, and it's going to divide this page up into thirds, and it's going to print those things out, obviously. But as I grow the page, notice that they stay in their kind of thirds, and as I shrink the page, they stay in their thirds as well. And so I indicate it's flexible. By saying I have 3 columns, it says, okay, I'm just going to divide the page up into 3 columns, and then as it hits these, what are referred to as breakpoints, it shifts these, so you just saw that little jump. It shifts these down, smaller and smaller and smaller, into their thirds of the page, so that no matter which device that we're on, it's going to look nice. All right, so we'll talk more about the grid system in the next video. Spencer out.